Hi there. You're probably watching this video because you've run into this error exploring Langchain JS library, specifically the audio transcription task with the YoutubeLoader. Don't worry, you're not alone. The issues with the npm package dependency here, starting from the Langchain YoutubeLoader, leading up to the Centra npm package, which is supposed to be used in the backend, along with the fin package. So you're not meant to use YoutubeLoader in the front end, but rather in the backend, so that you can make an API request from the front end and get the transcription data from the backend. Well, that was all theory. Now let's get hands-on with debugging and fixing the issue. Here is a simple Next.js app that takes in a YouTube video URL, and when clicked on the transcribe button, returns the transcribe data. I also have the DevTools opened up, and I'm using the Chrome browser. So let's give it a try. Get the URL, and when I click on the transcribe button, I see an error there. So if we click on it, you see the error that we discussed at the beginning of the video. URL is not a constructor. You can also see the specific location of the line of code that is causing the error. So let's go to the source code now. So I'm on Visual Studio Code, and here is the sample code. I'm using the app router in the Next.js. Just in case you're new to Next.js, a couple of side notes about the framework. Next.js can be used to build full stack apps, meaning you can implement both the front end and the backend code with Next.js alone. In the past, full stack apps have been built with Mern and other stacks. So there we needed a separate framework for front end like React and another framework for the backend like the Express. Because we can build the full stack app with Next.js alone, it makes the development process relatively easier. And it also comes with a lot of built-in features to create production-ready app. Another thing to note is Next.js has the concept of client and server components, the way to differentiate the code that will be on the client and on the server. And by default, all components are server components. And if you want a component to be a client component, you have to have this header at the top, use client. That is like the differentiating boundary between the server and the client. Next.js also has specific naming convention for special files like page.js, layout.js. Enough with the Next.js side notes. Let's jump into the code now. So we have the YouTubeLoader being imported at the top here. And if we scroll down, we have the home component in page.js. Within the home component, we have the standard React hooks code to do the state management. Then we have the change event handler to handle change in the video URL input. Then the onTranscribe handler to be executed when the transcribe button is clicked, which has the code that creates an instance of the YouTubeLoader, which is the loader here. Give the video URL as the input and some options like the language, English, and add video info for getting the metadata. So once we have the instance of the YouTubeLoader, we then have to load it to carry out the transcription task, which is happening at line 39. This is where we got the error. So we'll get back to browser soon, but we scroll down a little bit, then we have the JSX to render the UI. So we have the form element within which we have the input element that takes the video URL and the button here to click for transcription. So once the form is submitted, then we have the handler linked to the submit event here to carry out the transcription process. So that was a quick overview, but if you're interested in checking out the code, the link to GitHub repo is available in the video description. So feel free to explore. All right, back to the browser now. So to actually debug this issue, we can use the DevTools and set a breakpoint at this particular line of code in page.js and trace the execution flow to the actual line of code that is causing the error. That is how I discovered the npm package dependency that was leading up to the error. Let me pull that up for you. So if you remember, I discussed this package dependency that is leading up to the error, like starting from the YoutubeLoader to the transcript to the fin and the Centra. So we're going to trace this dependency now through the Chrome DevTools. Okay, back to the Chrome browser. Let me refresh. And before I do the transcription again, what I'll do is I'll set a breakpoint. So breakpoint is a way of pausing the execution at a set line of code so that you can debug the issue based on different values that are set in different variables to see where things are going wrong. So let me do that. Go to Webpack internal, then app pages browser, source, app, and then the page.js. So the line of code that was causing the error was loader.load. Even though the line number is kind of different, this is a modified version after the build process done by Webpack. So if I set the breakpoint here, it will automatically reference to the source code. So now if we give the URL to transcribe, you see we have the execution paused at the set breakpoint. So we have this debug pane here, and we have the options to step over, step in, and step out of the current function. So what we're going to do is we're going to step into, and you have to be a little patient to actually follow the trace, get to different parts of the code, and the line of code that's causing the error. So let's keep stepping in. As you can see, it is showing us the set values for different variables, like the transcript here. It is undefined right now. So this is better than printing console.log messages. So let's continue. Now we're into the YouTube transcript package and its code, which is the next dependency after the YouTubeLoader in Langchain. So with a little more stepping in, we get to the fin package, fin.js, which is the package after YouTube transcript. And you can see it's able to get the URL of the YouTube video here. Let's continue. Now we get to the Centra package, create request.js. As you can see, it is able to get the URL here as well. So that part is working fine. Let's keep stepping in a little more. So here is where we are getting the error. So TypeError URL is not a constructor at new Centra request. So the Centra request, that part of the code is in the Centra package. So it's right next here. So because it is related to URL, the likely line of code causing the error is the line 14 here in Centra request.js, URL string new URL. And the new Centra request is essentially creating an instance of the Centra request here, which is a class, JavaScript class. So this is how you can set breakpoints and do the debugging in the Chrome DevTools to get to the root cause. So if you want to get more information, you can actually go to GitHub and explore these packages here, because all of this is open source. So you can get to the GitHub repos and check out the issues tab to see if authors have encountered this issue and if they've tried to fix it. So let's do that. Let's go to the Centra package here on the GitHub, and we scroll down, go to the description. The description is a core lightweight HTTP client for Node. So because it is for Node, it is supposed to be used in the backend and not in the front end, which might be the cause of the error because we're using it in the front end right now. So let's go to the create request here, or rather the model Centra request. That is where we saw the error, the line 14, the same that we saw in our DevTools here. And let's go to the issues. And as you can see here, we have the same error. URL is not a constructor. So someone has created an issue. And since this issue has been encountered when Browserify was used to actually run the code in the front end. So Browserify is a tool which helps bundle up NPM packages created for the backend or the node environment, along with all its dependencies to be used in the browser. So it seems like even with the Browserify, you're not able to use it in the front end. Let's backtrace this and go to the fin package. So if you check out the description, even this is built for Node.js. So if you check the package.json, where we have all the package dependencies, we can see that we have Centra as the dependency here. And if we go to the issues again in the fin package, let's try entering the error message. URL is not a constructor. See, we have one closed issue. And if we scroll down a bit, see one of the users mentions that it is not meant to be used for front end because it has been created for the node environment. and another user adds onto that information saying that it is a node package and uses the native node modules. So other key information provided here is with the browser file, like the error mentioned in the prior issue, and seems like it's pointing to the same central issue here. And if we scroll down, this user has actually posted a fix for the browser file issue. So if we go here, he suggested a couple of code changes here. So instead of the URL parser, and instead of creating an instance of the URL here, directly using the URL parser here. So depending on the requirement, if you have to use YouTubeLoader in the front end, what you'd have to do is you have to incorporate this fix locally in the Centra package after you install it to fix the error. But a better fix would be to just use YouTubeLoader in the backend itself, like I suggested earlier in the video, because you have a nice separation of concerns here with front end handling the UI and the backend doing the data processing, which in this case would be to transcribe the video URL. And we have the data exchange happening accordingly, like video URL sent to the backend and transcribe data sent to the front end. The additional benefit of having YouTubeLoader in the backend is that the JavaScript bundle size in the browser would be reduced, because now the code pertaining to the YouTubeLoader would be only on the backend and won't be sent to run in the browser, leading to faster page loads. Let me continue the app execution and we run into the error. The way we're going to fix this error is by adding the YouTubeLoader code to the backend. We are in page.js. We have the onTranscribe handler here, where we have the YouTubeLoader code on the front end. Like I mentioned before, you can have backend code as well in Next.js, and the way to do that is by adding API folder. And again, Next.js is very particular about the folder and file names. So you have to have an API folder in the app router, and within the API folder, you need to have a route.js with the backend code. We already have the code here with a post method to handle the request from the client when the form is submitted. This is some code to get the form data and extract the video URL from it, and then create the loader instance in the API route handler here, and then call the load method to get the transcribe video docs and send it back to the client as a JSON object. So this is in place. We now have to accordingly change the code in the front end as well to make this request and get the transcribe data back. So let's go to page.js, go to the top. We will comment out the YouTubeLoader here because that part of the code has been moved to the backend now. Then in the onTranscribe handler, we will comment this line of code which creates the instance of YouTubeLoader. We then take the form data, which we're going to send to the backend. We no longer need this code to call the load method. We also can comment out the remaining lines of code here in this block because we haven't made the request to the backend yet. So here is the code that makes a request to the backend and sets the state accordingly. So those are the code changes that we need to extract video URL, create an instance of the form data to be sent in the post request here. And because we're going to send a request to the route handler in the API folder here, that is what we have in the URL for the fetch here. And once we have the response, we extract the data from the JSON object and we accordingly set the state for the component here. So those are all the changes that you need to move the code of the YouTubeLoader from the front end to the backend. So let's save this, go back to the browser, let's refresh. Let's give the URL again and transcribe. We can remove the breakpoint now. Just click on it to remove it and continue the execution. And sure enough, we have the transcribe data rendered on the page and we no longer have the issue. So I'm printing out the metadata here, the author, source, description, view count, that is the title. And then we have the video transcription here. So that is how you can fix this issue of URL is not a constructor when using YouTubeLoader for the audio transcription task. So just moving the code to the backend fixed the issue because the Centra and the fin packages, which are part of the package dependency tree, are supposed to be used in the backend. But if you have to use it in the front end, you can certainly explore browse verify and the temporary fix suggested by user on the GitHub. But I think moving the code to the backend is a more elegant solution, and also an optimization in terms of reduced JavaScript bundle size, resulting in faster page loads and also caching on the server. That's it for this video. Hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.